All right. Well, welcome to the class, everybody. This is me. Excuse the COVID hair and the COVID beard and everything. But yeah, we're getting started here, and I wanted to just pop on this way. That way, you know what I look like. The picture doesn't really do justice to me because it's taken a couple of weeks old, months, but there we are. Just a couple of words. If you join late, I am never going to call you out for it. I don't have a problem with you coming in for the last 15 minutes. If you have to ask a question, that's probably the best thing to do. If you just like, I just need to ask a question and have you walk me through something, join the last couple of few minutes, and I've usually turned the recording off, and that way you can ask without being outed on the internet for asking a question. But I wouldn't worry about that. So mostly what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I use a little tablet with a pen to go through the problems with you, and I'll try to share like my little hints for maybe how you think about something or how you should set something up that might be a little bit easier to follow than what the book does. But I also invite my students to if you need to shoot me an email and say, look, I really need you to walk me through this. Go ahead and shoot me that email. I can start the Zoom up at any time and have you come in and walk you through something. And if you're having trouble with something, I'll let you share the screen and you can show me and say, right here, this is what I'm having problems with. I can't see it from right there. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and walk you through a couple of things, and hopefully that'll help, some problems. What I did over the fall is I shared these off. I put these up on YouTube, and then I shared them on the class site. I made them hidden, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and not hide them for it. That way, if you end up subscribing to my channel, I'm not pressing for that. I'm not making any money off of that. But it might be an easier way for you to access the content rather than having to go through always having to go through the class website. So I'm just going to make that little change so it might make it a little bit easier for you. Unfortunately, it'll be public, and like I said, if you didn't want to ask a question because you're a little worried about people judging you, they'll never know who you are, okay? Because I hide your names and everything when I do the share my screen, so that only if somebody can identify you by voice. That's the only thing you would ever have to worry about. Okay, and even then, people ask questions, and it's not a big deal. Nobody is watching these videos to find one person that asked a question, and you never know. Somebody might say, "Wow, that was exactly what I needed to know." So thank you for asking that. So now you're a hero to thousands or dozens. My channel doesn't get a lot of views. So yeah, why don't we just give this thing a start? So I'm going to go ahead and hit the share screen here and walk you through the class and just get started with the first lecture here. So share. All right. So the first thing I have is a calculator emulator that I'm going to use for us. I don't remember exactly where I got this, but I do remember my students having a problem with this last semester. But you guys we're not using any kind of monitoring software for your exams. So we're just going to, you have a calculator. Nobody's going to yell at you for it. So you're fine. I recommend a TA30X2. They're, they're less than $20. But that's what I use for, like, if I don't have anything fancy to do, I'll use that calculator. So first thing to do here is hit our class up. Okay. So what I did here is I just went to coursework, and this is under content. Okay, so it'll reload here for us, same screen. And if you're wondering, if you're kind of stuck, like, where am I supposed to be going for all of this? Okay, there's my lab math student links. Go ahead and hit that. I'm actually rather dying to know. Some of you guys have always end up getting some kind of an access code problem here, and I cannot recreate this error. So if you're having that error, please let me know what you're clicking so that I can see what's happening here. Maybe we can go back and fix some of that so other people don't have a problem. But you could hit all assignments. You could hit my math lab assignment. That's fine. That's probably a good place to start. and it'll take you off to Pearson's website, and it'll just, it'll just pop you into here. And you can tell I played a little bit around with some of the problems here beforehand, but we're just going to go ahead and hit this. And by the way, I put deadlines on things because I thought that was a good idea, but that's something we can talk about and we can change. Okay, that's not written in stone. We have the power to adjust that. So if you're getting a little behind, let me know, and we can change those things. I don't like even the 15% late penalty. I'm not gonna, I'd rather extend the homework than to make you face a penalty for it. Okay, so we'll do that. I got to be a little bit strict on the amount of time it takes you to take a quiz or take a test, because you should study for it at least a little bit and kind of have a plan of what you're going to be doing. I don't want you to be able to have enough time to look up everything, but again, because we're not proctoring, okay? But if you study for things, they should be okay, right? To do that. So let's just hit the homework. All right, you can tell I went through a lot. I don't know if I could do any of that, but let's go ahead and just start working. See, I don't like this. I would rather extend the homework than to deduct your score. Okay, so don't be afraid to ask them, like, hey, I got home from work a little late and I couldn't get to it, so would you mind? No, not at all. I don't mind putting this forward, because I don't want to do this. Doing the work, knowing the material, more important than trying to quibble over a couple of points here and there. So don't be afraid of asking about that. So one of the questions, okay, so we'll just start going into this. Okay, this is this particular section actually is made to look a little bit harder than what you really think it ought to. Okay, I'll go ahead and enlarge this a little bit. Maybe it might help to see it. And I'm just going to start here because I think a lot of people know how to do this problem already. And if you think about it this way, the rest of the problems will fall into line. So why don't we, I'm just going to start with this, all right, and see if we can't generalize this problem to the rest of them. All right, so here's the idea, was that you were paid $230, right, and 92 cents for 22 and a half hours of work. All right, and then it says, well, what should you be paid? What if you worked for 30 hours? Right, so clearly this person does not know what their hourly rate is, okay? So that's pretty much what they're asking us to do, is to figure this out. Okay, so we're going to work it a couple of different ways here. One thing you can, and this we're assuming, right? We're making the assumption that we're working at the same rate of pay. So you didn't suddenly get a raise because you worked a different number of hours, and you didn't change positions where you would be paid a different amount. Okay, we're just going with the same rate. Okay, and I'm sure you could figure out what you're doing with this regardless, right? If you were to just ask right now, we're going to be kind of careful on our units, but if I asked you, I said, what's our hourly pay here? Right? So we're going to be making, right, $230.92, right? Here's our units for 22.5 hours. And we'll have a dollars per hour kind of an idea here, right? My calculator here, we'll hit $230.92. All right. And we're going to divide that by 22.5 because that's how many hours they told us they had. All right. And we got that delightful, right? We got $10, $26.3111 per hour. Okay. So this was 10, 21, 26. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it right to the cents because nobody will pay attention to this. I'm sure somebody will, but we won't. Okay, and I'll show you what we'll do a little bit later. Okay, this book is really picky about your rounding. Your answers are really picky about your rounding. So if you're getting the wrong answer several times, make sure you're reading what they actually want correctly and make sure that you're getting what you need there. In the parlance, in the vocabulary of the book, this is called your scaling factor. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to say, well, let's apply that scaling factor to the rest of this. So we have 30 hours, right, times $10.26 an hour. Notice I can kind of cancel the hours out and we're just going to have money left over. And that's a trick that you can use a lot of times, or a technique you can use a lot of times to like make sure that you're getting in the right direction. Okay, is that we're just talking about money here. And we'll go ahead and hit our $30 per hour, right? 30 times whatever the previous answer was. And I'm going to go ahead and do it this way first, okay? The second function, ANS button, will take whatever you had as the previous answer and go ahead and do that. And then we'll go ahead and just do it the old-fashioned way of saying 30 times 10.26. All right, just there might be a round-off error in there. Okay, so there we are. Yeah, so it is a little bit of a round-off error because if we didn't, if we left all of this alone, okay, we actually get 307.89 cents, and in this section we're only going to be dealing with 307.80 cents. Okay, so the book will probably be very insistent on you typing in 30.89. Okay, 307.89, 307. So let me short you there on your short this person on their check. All right, so that's what we could do with that. All right, now let's expand this a little bit, and we're just going to go ahead and show you what's going on here and the way the book wants you to do the rest of these problems and the way it puts it out. Does it make sense that the more hours you work, the more you should get paid? Right, that does make sense, right? And there's a lot of things. That's called directly proportional. All right. And it's going to be different from inversely proportional. We'll talk about that in a moment, okay? But directly proportional things, what you're looking for is some kind of scaling factor. I'll call it K. This will be my scaling factor times your quantity. Okay, in this case, we'll call it H2 for the number of hours that we worked should equal your new pay scale. Okay, your new amount of pay that you're getting. All right, so they're on the same line as far as the fraction goes, because you can think about a fraction being a 1 here or a 1 here. And directly proportional means that they're either both on the top of the fraction or both on the bottom of the fraction. All right, so let's set this up the way the book wants us to do it. And we're going to go ahead and hit this as, well, we have our first hours is equal to the first pay, right? Same line. And our second hours is going to be equal to the second pay, right? And we don't, right? We said when we first started this problem, they're asking us how much should we pay for the second hours of work. I don't know that. And you could put like maybe a little squiggle or some kind of, maybe you can get a green, right? A green button or a green arrow, and you might just want to underline, right, the variable that you don't know, right? We don't know what that is, all right? So we'll go back to blue here for a second. So what we're trying to do is solve for this. I don't want to turn this, we want to keep this as simple as possible. And I find that most people really like having numbers. So we'll go back to our numbers here. So what was our first hours? Our first hours was 22.5 hours. You keep the fraction here, that's fine. And the next one was our 30 hours. What was our first pay scale, right? The first paycheck we got was $230.92. Saying, well, what should we expect for our second one? I don't know. That's what we're going to figure out here. All right. Now, a lot of people, maybe in junior high, maybe in high school, you learned what cross multiplying was, and that's pretty much what we're going to do here. Okay. So we're going to say we have 22.5 P2. Okay. And that is equal to 30 times 230.92. Okay. All I did was cross these things over, and that's what we're trying to do here. So let's go ahead and take the intermediate step. Okay, let's say we have 22.5 times P2, and that's equal to, and all I'm going to do here is say this is 30 times 230.92. All right. And here we have 697.60. Okay. And then what we have to do is we have to isolate this P2 here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 22.5. That's going to cancel this out. Divide by 22.5. And we're going to have our P2 is equal to this number here, right? This 6927.6. And we're going to divide that by our 22.5. 22.5. All right. And what do you know? We got the same number here. We got 307.89 and a bunch of threes here. Okay. But that's the answer that they're going to want in your book. And that's hopefully that gave you a little bit more insight for like, you already know how to do this. I'm sure that when somebody tells you how much you get paid, so you look at your pay, you look at your time card at the end of the week, you know, like, well, I'm just going to multiply my hourly rate times my time and get my what I expect to see on my paycheck. You won't because of the taxes and wage theft and a whole bunch of other things going on here, but at least you have an idea. Okay. And just like I said, just to put it in this different sort of idea, we're just going to set it up a slightly different way. Okay. But it's going to give us the same answer. Okay. So I'm just trying to draw sort of from something you know how to do to putting it in a slightly different way so that we can go ahead and do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at another one. I'll have to look through your test to see exactly which problem they picked. I think it was the one before this. Pressures and volumes. Okay. I like pressures and volumes because I learned them in high school chemistry, and so I've had a lot of practice doing some of these problems. But so we have, so this problem reads this way. Okay, when we have a tire is inflated, the air pressure is inversely proportional. Okay, that's your magic word at this point. And inversely proportional things go on the opposite line of their fraction. Okay, so if I have two quantities, like in this case, we have pressure, which I'm just going to call P's, and we have volumes, which I'm just going to call V's. Okay, so when I set this one up, we have a P1 equals, and we're going to have some kind of a ratio here, but they're going to go on opposite sides of the fraction. So the P1 is on top, the V1's on the bottom. P2 is on the bottom, V1 is on the top. Okay, so they're opposite. No, that's not right. Sorry about that. Don't let me lie to you. Let's go back to V1 and then P2 because it's opposite side of the fraction. Now, the way I was taught this in high school was to set it up this way. But you could see all I did was just cross multiply these two things. Okay, you get P1 V1 equals P2 V2. And that was it. For us in high school, this was an easier way to think about it because there was no fractions. So that's always a plus, right, when you don't have fractions. So, but sometimes, it's just easier to go with this because your book tends to set things up this way. Okay. But if you wanted to set it up this way, that would be okay too. All right. But just remember, when it says inversely proportional, the values that you're relating are on opposite sides of the fraction. The pressure's on the bottom, the volume's on top. And it didn't matter which side I put this stuff on, right? I mean, if I do V1 over V2 is equal to P2 over P1, I mean, we're still going to get the same thing, right? All I did was flip both of these upside down. Doesn't really hurt anything. Okay, that's the beauty of ratios, is that you could do that. Okay, so it doesn't matter which order you decided to do this in or which order they dealt it to you. Okay, we're still going to get the good answer here. So let's just go ahead and talk about that. So what did they give us? They said, by the way, they said air tire is inversely proportional. Okay, and I really like when I pick problems for exams, for quizzes, I really like to pick problems where they'll tell you things like the pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. Okay, I don't like to make you guys memorize this. I think the only one that they have you memorize is like the gears and the rotations per minute. okay, is how big a thing has in the speed of rotation. That's inversely proportional. But stuff like pressure and volume, when we pick the problems for the exam, we're picking them right out of here. So I like to pick ones that give you an idea of like, hey, this is what's happening. You'll see this inversely proportional. Okay, so let's just go ahead and start thinking about this. All right. So let's set this up. We've got P1 equals, oops, I want to go with volumes on top, don't I? I mean, it doesn't really matter, but since I set it up the first way. Oh no, I was right. There we go. P1 equals and V1, and then divided by P2, and we're going to put the V2 up here. Okay. And what do I know? Right? We know that the pressure, the P1 is 27 pounds per square inch, right? 27 psi. So we'll say P1 is equal to 27 psi. All right. And what was the volume at that point? The volume was 130 cubic inches. Okay, so V1, 130 cubic inches. All right. And then what is the pressure when the volume is 100? Okay, so we don't know what the pressure is for P2. Is just, I don't know. But V2, right, that was 150 cubic inches. So let's go ahead and set that up. These are units, by the way, the cubic inches. Don't go cubing things, okay? That'll come later, but not in this chapter. Okay, so don't mess with the fact that it says cube. Don't reach for your cubic button here. All right. So let's go ahead and just set this up. So we've got 27 here, right, equals, and the volume has to go on the bottom. Okay. I didn't know what my P2 was, so we're just going to leave it as P2, right, and put 150 on the top. Okay, and you see how we have the scaling factor here, really? Okay, it is a scaling factor for this. So what we're going to do is, again, we're just going to cross multiply. So we're going to have our 27 times 130 is equal to 150 times P2. All right. Go to our calculator here. So we've got 27. Oops, I got to turn it on. 27 times 130. We got 3510 here, 3510. And that is equal to 150 times P2. Well, we're trying to isolate P2 here. So let's go ahead and divide, right? That's how you undo multiplication, is you divide. Let's go ahead and divide both sides by 150. All right, so let's divide by 50. And we'll have our P2 here. And that was at 23.4. Right? 23.4. That's what we had for our answer here. They said, right, let me see if I can move this up. Yeah, they gave me a little green check mark for doing this one. So hooray, we're right. All right. So normally if there were people in the class here, I would ask you at this point, is there more you would like to see? And I could do more of these things as smaller videos and let that out. I had plans to do that today, but I did not make it. So let's go ahead and hit a different homework. All right. So that was 4.2. And this is effectively all you're doing with 4.2 is setting up these kinds of equations and then solving them. Right? Actually, that's what you're going to be doing for all of chapter 4, really. But can I do it this way? No, I can't. Let's go ahead and click this off. Yeah, leave page. It's fine. We'll go back to our math here. Hopefully it didn't get mad and kick me out at this point. Okay, let's go back to our homework. I know there's better ways to get around than this stuff. All right. But for chapter 4, again, you can see this one has 20 questions in it. There's a reason for that, is because the first few questions are pretty straightforward. Okay, and this is talking about percents. All right. So the thing to know about percent is all it really means. It's like Latin for per centum, per 100, and that's all we're really doing here. The biggest mistake people make with percent is that when you want to use this number in a calculation, like if you've got 25%, that 25% of $1, that's 25 cents, right? That's a quarter. But how would I express 25 cents as far as dollars go? We would say it's we have a full bottomist in our class, so I'll try to put my leading zero in there so she won't get too mad at us. Okay, but that's 0.25. Okay, all we did was took our decimal place and we just moved it 2 places, and that's it. That's what you do for percents. Okay, so if I have 3.5%, all we're doing is we're taking this decimal place and moving it twice. So this would be 0.035. Okay, you don't really have to write this. If you're in the healthcare field, if you're in a healthcare sort of major, they will get really mad at you if you don't do this, because it's real easy to make a mistake if you don't include this leading zero. And the last thing you want is your medical professional to give you like accidentally 10 times the amount of drug they were supposed to. So your healthcare people, for those majors, your healthcare teachers, they will really get upset with you for this. So I'll try to be good and include it. Okay. And it's good practice for everybody else to do it too. But for healthcare people, yeah, they'll yell at you. Okay. So let's take a look at a couple of the problems that they have. Oh, there's one more thing. Of means times. Okay. And I really feel for you guys on this one. Okay. The percents, I remember being in grade school. I remember being maybe in middle school. I don't remember exactly what grade it was, but I do remember how incredibly frustrating all of these problems were. And they just seemed to be so mystical. And then at some point, I figured, I was like, oh, of means times. Oh, this isn't so bad. Let's do one that's a little harder. We'll come back to that one. Show you one. Ah, there we go. All right. This book also drives me nuts because I teach probability a lot too, and we use percents in that. And there's a rule that says percents can't ever be over 100, and this is using a little bit more liberal definition of percent. So it bugs me when I see this, but that's okay. The rules still work the way that they should, so that's fine that they do it. Okay, it's just that if you ever get me for probability and you write down 257.5%, I'm going to mark you wrong in a bad way. Okay, because in probability, it caps out at 100. We don't deal with this. Okay. So what are they at? And this is why there's so many problems, is that because they're very straightforward this way. There's not, there's some word problems, but there's not, the first couple of few are all things like this. So we want to know what's 257.5% of 360. All right. So what's the first thing we got to do? We got to change the percent into a decimal. So all we're going to do is we're going to move our decimal place. So this is 2.575, and that is equal to 257%. Okay. So that's all we're doing, is we're just changing this decimal place twice. Okay. And remember, of means times. So all they're asking us to do is say 2.575 of times 360. And what does that equal? Okay. So I realize and I remember that these I hated these things. And then it's like, what do you mean it just means times? That can't be it. Like, yeah, that's it. Again, your book is extremely picky, and the reading comprehension and figuring out what they're asking for, that's going to be the hardest thing that you have in this. Well, not the hardest thing, but that is one of the hardest things in this chapter. Okay, is to do that. All right, so yay, it likes what I got for an answer, and that was fantastic. A little red check here, and then they're asking us to do a few more. Okay, let's see if I can find. Oh, this is a different one. Okay, so here, okay, same kind of problem or similar kind of problem, but they're saying 155% of, I don't know, okay, is equal to 62. All right, and just allow me a little bit of a tangent here. This is really the algebra stuff, right? So when am I ever going to need this? I had a niece, I have a niece, she's still alive. She asked me to help her with her budget. And she's like, okay, well, look, I need you to help me with my budget. This is what I have so far. I've got some money coming in from my paycheck. Okay, and then I've got some rent, and I've got my electric bill, I've got my car payment, I've got my phone bill, and then, you know, she just pretty much listed out all of her utilities. And she didn't even have paychecks sitting here. This was all gone. She just had plus $1, and then she just kept using, well, it's minus $1 because I'm spending money. Like, okay, could we do something like call this your salary, and then, you know, call this R for rent, and C for your car, and P for your phone, so that you have an idea of what these amounts kind of look like, and that you could actually arrange it using these letters. And that helped her a lot. So this abstraction of making a letter into, or a number into a letter, that's your basic part of algebra. And that, she did not think of that earlier. That's okay. That's why you guys go to school. That's why I went to school. But, you know, people say, oh, I never use algebra. That's not true. As soon as you have abstracted a number into a letter, you are on the path of using algebra. Okay, so don't let people tell you, like, you never use that. Like, you know, just think about your budget with just the dollar signs. No letters, no categories, no nothing. Okay. So the X is just, we don't know what that one is. Okay. So I guess we can use it for Xfinity over here if we wanted to. But again, all we're going to do, we're going to convert this into a decimal, right? So we're going to say this is 1.55 of that times, I'll put a dot because we already have an X here. That's why we use dots. X is equal to 62. We have to isolate that X. So how do we undo the multiplication? Is that we divide both sides, right, by the 155. And we get X is equal to, I'm sorry, my heater is loud. Okay, so it's a standard New Mexico house. This is what we have. All right, and then we go. So X is equal to 40. So 155% of 40 is 62. And since it's a bigger number than 100, it would make sense that we're going to get a bigger number. And you can always test this, right? 155 times 40, and what does that equal? Right? Oops. So there we go. We knew that. Okay. So again, I remember being absolutely confounded by these things in high school, and then having that key of unlocking and saying, what do you mean? I just moved the decimal place and then replaced the of with the times. Is that it? Like, yeah, that was it. That was the whole secret. I don't know why. I don't remember why I had such a problem with it, but I did, and I can remember that day. Okay. I don't want to shy away from it. So let's see, if you answered 36 problems correctly on a 42 question test, so practical application, what percentage of the problems did you answer correctly? Okay, and they go through a lot of formulas for this. All right, so we're going to say we have, 36 out of 42. Let me go back a little bit and kind of guide us through this thing. Okay. Your book will talk about the P over B is equal to R over 100, I think. This is the part of the base. Okay, is equal to your rate over 100 is equal to your percentage. Okay, I don't remember exactly what letters they put on here. Okay, but we use theirs. It's fine. Okay, but that's pretty much what you're doing here. So again, we answered 36 out of 42 questions correctly. What are we going to get when we do that, right? 36 divided by 42. Oops, not 60. Divided by 42. Right? That's not the nicest number. See, round to the nearest whole number. Okay, your book is very, very specific about where you're supposed to round. So we'll talk about that in just a second when we put it in here. So this was 0.857, low with that. Okay, and some stuff. Okay, so to turn this into a percent, we're just going to do 1, 2. So if I wanted to put this as a percent, I would say 85.714%. And since it says round to the nearest whole, we're going to make this number, right? This is the last number at once. So because this is bigger than a 5, or it's 5 or bigger, we're going to turn this into an 86%. All right, that's all we're doing with this. Okay, so that's our 86%. All right, enter. All right, these are the C-level questions, so they're a little bit harder to do this. All right. I want to skip around a little bit. See, this one I got wrong the first time. Now, the reason why, because I didn't read the question. It says, what's the amount of her hourly raise? I wanted to figure out what was the amount that she was going to be getting paid in total. So this is a problem. This is a place where, you know, we're going to have an issue because they're going to ask you a very specific question and they're not going to ask you the question that you thought they were going to. All right. So how do you do something like this? Okay. So we're going to say, well, she gets a 5.5% pay raise. All right. So we're going to, first off, we're going to convert this to a decimal, right? We're going to say this is 5.5%. And here's your biggest mistake. All right, is we have to convert this to a decimal. So we have 1, 2. 5% of $1, right? I don't have 55 cents. I have a nickel. So this is going to be 0.055. Does that look like a nickel? 5.5%? Yeah, that's what we're looking for. So if you're still over here at the 5, you're going to get it wrong. That's a 50% increase. That is not what they're doing this. Okay, if you're always expecting that kind of a pay raise, prepare to be disappointed in life. All right, because that does not happen. All right, even 5.5, even that would be for some people that would be a lot. Okay, so we're going to be dealing with this as a decimal. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, she makes 28.50 an hour, right? So it's going to be 0.055 times 28.50 an hour. Okay, and what's that going to be? All right, 0.055 times 28.50. All right, and again, we're going to go ahead and say, well, since this number here is a 7, it's bigger than 5, we're going to go ahead and round that up. So this is going to be 1.57. All right, and that's going to be our increase. So her total, see, this is what I thought they asked, was how much is she getting paid in total? And that would have been 28.50 plus $1.57. Because most people, right, that's great that I got an increase, but how much am I taking home at the end of the day, right? That's what I really care about. So that was my first answer, and that was not right. This is the amount of the increase. Okay, so just be real careful with the reading comprehension part of this because they get really picky about that. All right, and again, we can go back and kind of look at this, $1.57. All right, so let's go ahead and, you know, we don't have too much time left. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next section to see what we do here. And again, if you want to see one worked out, you know, let me know and I'll work it out for us. Okay, I don't want to, you know, the whole reason that you're taking a class with a teacher is so that you can ask questions. And I really do encourage you to ask the questions because that's how you're going to get better. And I really, you know, I'm saying this really late in the video here, but you could also ask for a similar question. We could do a different one, right? Do the same kind of a thing. 4.5 payroll. But the last thing I want you to do is be staring at a page for like 20 minutes. I don't want you staring at a blank page for 10 minutes. Right? If you don't have any idea of where to start this thing, please reach out and say, look, I'm stuck. I don't know where to go from here. And that's a cue for me to say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And we can do it via Zoom and walk you through it this way. That's fine. I could post one of these. I could do this on my own and post this and make it a 5-minute video as opposed to an hour. But let me know what the best way of helping you out with this is, because that's the whole point of having a teacher. All right, so this is for you. So this is what is the amount of our hourly raise? I'll do this one kind of quick again, because we're trying to do this. But this was the 4.5%, right? 4.5%. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to move this decimal. Okay, so we're going to have 0.045, right? That was still kind of a nickel, right? 4.5% of a dollar is close to a nickel. Okay, times our 29.50, and that is the amount of our pay raise. So 0.045, and by the way, it doesn't care. The calculator doesn't care if you do 0.045 or just put in the 0.045. All right, so if you're used to doing that, you're not losing anything. If you're not doing it, you're not gaining anything. 3275. So let's go ahead, and since this is bigger than a 5, we're going to say this is 1.33. Okay, sorry, my handwriting is. You think it would get better with some practice, but no, we're not. All right, so let's see. Can I? Is it this one? Oh, fine. No, that wasn't it. Wasn't up here. Wasn't here. I might have to go back. Just hit save. Maybe that'll take me to a nice. Nope, still learning this too. Okay, so let's kill that. Yeah, leave page. Go back to my math lab. Okay, and let's go ahead and hit again homework. And we'll hit section 4.5. This was the app. This was applications of this stuff. Okay, so this is where it gets to be the hard problems. I don't remember. There was a problem I wanted to show you. I don't remember which one it was. Oh, oof. This is, again, I got this one wrong the first time I tried it too. I did not read carefully. So that, you think I would learn from the last one. I was starting to, so I got a little bit better, but there's a lot you have to dissect here. Okay, so that's the reading comprehension. That's your tough part of this thing. Okay, so be real careful with the quiz. Be real careful with the tests, because we don't have tests. We have quizzes and a final. Be real careful with the quizzes, because the reading comprehension is the thing that's going to get you. So we have a treatment plant that has a capacity of 20 million gallons per day, has a normal daily flow rate equal to 70% of capacity. When it rains, this flow is increased by 10% of the normal flow. What is the flow on a rainy day? Well, let's go ahead and start taking this apart. What's the flow on a regular day? So well, as I said, it's 70% of capacity. So it's 70% of 20. That's fine. So how do we figure out that problem, right? That's what we did. We're expert at the last section here. So this was changing this to a decimal, so 0.7, right? 70% of a dollar, that's, almost enough to at least start laundry, times your 20, right? And that was what? That was 1.4. Okay. And then it says we have 10% more of this. Okay. So 10% more. So what is 10% of 14 million gallons per day? Okay. And I'm going to use my restaurant trick on this one. 10% of this, we just move the decimal place over. It's 1.4. So if you wanted to do 0.10 times 14 and use a calculator, like, I'm not there to judge you. Okay. I wouldn't do it anyway. All right. I'm not going to judge you for you. I would someday. I hope you get better at doing that. But I'm not here to judge you on. Did you need to? There's times I do it too. I get the calculator out and I plug it in, and I'm like, oh, I should have known that. But that's okay. We all have our moments, right? So we're going to be able to say that, and we're going to have, okay, well, what was our original amount? Our original amount was 140 or 14 million gallons per day. And we're just going to add 1.4 to that. All right, and that's how we get our 15.4 million gallons per day. All right, and that's how you do a problem like that. All right. There's another one that was tricky. This one was tricky. Okay, a contractor takes a draw of $46,000, $46,700 from a homeowner to start a remodeling job. And he uses $22,450 to purchase materials and deposits the remaining money in a 3-month CD paying 3.6% annual interest. How much does he earn on the remaining funds in the 3 months? Okay, so you might be waiting to see what happens here. I'm not going to say he's a crooked contractor here. I don't know what's going on. So maybe they're just putting aside the money and they're going to use it later. It's fine. See what happens with the job. So what's the total amount that we have here? Total amount is $46,700. That's your starting funds. Minus, they're using $22,450 for the materials. How much is left? All right. So we're going to take our 46,700 minus 22,450. All right. And the amount we have left over here, that was 24250. All right. So he uses this much to purchase the materials and deposits the remaining money. That's our deposit here. When I have to work problems like this, and there's a lot of tricky stuff in here, I usually go through and annotate what the numbers mean as I'm going through. That keeps me honest and keeps it straight, and it makes it like less likely that I'm going to screw up. All right. So I recommend when you're doing problems like this and you're laying them out, like go ahead and make little notes about what's happening so that you know what is accounted for where. Okay. And now we're going to have an interest rate of 3.6 annual percent. Okay. So remember, this is how much interest does he earn. Okay. So this, even though it says compounded, it's only compounded once a year. So we don't have to use that crazy formula that talks about compounding interest. Since we're only doing it for 1 year, our T is 1 and it compounds once per year. So you can go ahead and use your simple interest because it's not even for a year. Okay. So remember your interest is equal to PRT. So remember your principal, right? That's your principal. This is your interest rate. And I'm just going to put a thing as a decimal. Okay. If you put in 3.6 here, you're saying that you're charging somebody 360% interest. All right. That, I mean, if you work at a title loan place, that might be your normal day. But for the rest of us, this is, here's a word for you. That's called usury. Okay. That used to be illegal. It isn't anymore, but it used to be. That was the technical term for loan sharking. Okay. And your time, this is an APR. That's annual, right? The interest is an annual. So that's in T is in time. T is in years, rather. Okay, so be really careful about T is in years when you're talking about annual percentage rates. If you have a rate that's like monthly percentage rate, then T would be in months. Okay. So all we're going to do here is we're going to say our interest is equal to our 24,250 times 0. Change it to a decimal, 0.36, right? So remember your savings accounts. This is like 10 times, 100 times what my savings account has for interest rate. It's just insulting. But that's our interest. And then our time. How much time do we spend here? Well, we said 3 months out of 12. Okay, this is a quarter of a year. That's why it's called quarterly. Okay, but that's how you can set this thing up. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say we got 24, 250, okay, times 0.036, all right, and then times, and you could either say 0.25, you could say 3 over 12 here, whatever you want to do is fine. I like to simplify it a little bit because I don't like typing all the numbers in the calculator, because if you're going to mess up, that's often where it is. Okay, but $218, okay, and 25 cents. Okay, so that's our, that's what we ended up with here. Again, they're not asking you for the total amount that you're going to have at the end. Don't add it back in. It's not what they want. They just want this. All right, so be careful about, again, only giving them what they ask for. You don't have to do more than that. And again, with these problems, if you're stuck with one of them, don't stay stuck. Okay, I've looked at some of their help. I was just like, that this Help Me Solve It is actually pretty good. View an Example can be pretty good because they do it with the textbook. You could do Ask My Instructor. I think this goes to my email, but I'm not sure. I should probably check. But if you're stuck on these, let me know so we can work through them and get you unstuck. Because I don't, I want to see you succeed. I don't want to see you get stuck. I'm not deriving any joy out of your misery for these problems. Okay, I want you to do well with it. All right, so please let me know if you're stuck, because then we can get you help with it. All right, and again, you want to come to the evening one, that's great. You want to show up a little bit late, that's fine. I am not going to, I'll see a participant here. I got to let you in, I think, because I have a waiting room. But that's the amount of time you'll be on screen, is for me to say yes. Okay, but I'm not going to call you out for showing up. Put these out on the internet so nobody needs to know who you are. Okay, you can see, I'm always talking, so you have this. Okay, it might show up your screen name. I don't know if this shows up on the internet. It might show up your screen name if you ask a question, but please do. Okay, again, I can't anticipate everything that you guys are going to ask, and I can't see it through your eyes. So ask me the question if you have it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop us here. And again, nobody's joining me, but if you were to join me, and you join in around this time and you want to wait for me to say stop recording, okay, I'll tell you I'm going to stop recording, and then you can ask other questions. Okay, so like I said, here's where we're going to go. We're going to stop the recording. So you stop recording, I'll hit that. And then if you're here and you wanted to ask a question, I'll stay on a little bit later. Not tonight, but I would stay on a little bit later if you wanted to ask another question, or and you didn't want anybody to know, you felt a little bit bad about it. Please take advantage of that too. Okay, and again, office hours are going to be in the morning. Okay, same website, same Zoom thing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. I'll put it up on the YouTube for you, and let that happen. Okay, so again, welcome to class, and it's going to go quick. All right, it's going to go real quick. So don't get stuck too often.